Hello. We are going to manipulate this linear equation so that we solve for y. In other words, this letter here is in the middle of so much stuff. We want to clear it so that it's just by itself. We isolate y. In order to do this in graspable math, if you try to say, well, let's move this x to the other side, it's not going to happen. What students need to know or understand is that you have to use the properties of equality. You can't change the values of both sides because this thing is equal right now. And if you move the x over, it won't stay. So you have to say, okay, I'm going to keep this equation equal. And in order to keep the equation equal, I'm going to do the same thing to both sides of my balanced equation. So, in order to get the x so that it's no longer on the left-hand side of my balanced equation, I'm going to remove this so that there's none. Well, mathematically, how do we get none? Well, we have to say, if I have one x, I'm going to take it away. Well, that's subtraction. So I'm going to tap on the equal sign, and I'm going to take my balanced equation, and I want you to take away the x from both sides. Well, notice you don't have an x on the right-hand side. So how does that work? If you do not have an x on the right-hand side of the equation, it says, well, now you have a balance of a negative x, which is fine. And so we're going to combine those terms. And what happens is the x and the minus x become 0. And so now we have a placeholder for where we didn't have an x. You're saying you're down an x on this side, right? Negative x. You're down an x. But that's conceptual. We just want to deal with the math. So I'm going to commute this. If I move this side of the expression around, I am commuting using my commutative property. So I'm going to commute this to be in front of the constant number here, 12. The variable negative x, because I'm down an x. Well, now I'm going to just strictly stick to math, right? I'm going to say, okay, so I have negative 3y's, but I want a positive y. Well, how do I get positive y? Well, I'm going to take this negative 3, and it's being multiplied, right? I'm going to show you. It's showing you we're being multiplied. Actually, graspable math can say this is times, right? If I take the y and move it around, it's telling you you're multiplying 3 times y. So how do we undo multiplying y by negative 3? Let's see. I'm going to take my balanced equation, right? It's still balanced. And I'm going to say, well, if I'm multiplying by negative 3, then I'm going to divide it back. Stop multiplying. And we know that negative 3 divided by negative 3 is the number 1, right? Negative divided by negative is positive. So if I tap on the division symbol here, because the fraction bar indicates division, I'm going to get positive y. Yes, this is what I wanted. Okay, so let's see. What can we do on the right-hand side? I have the negative x that's being divided by negative 3, and I have the negative 12 that's being divided by negative 3. And I could do that, but I want to do it all together. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to drag the whole thing down so it comes down, and I'm going to divvy it up. I'm going to say, all right, you do u first, and then you do the 12 next, okay? So we're going to do the negative x first, and then the negative 12. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to move this negative 3 forward so that it's just x over 3. And I'm going to move this negative 3 forward because we like the negatives in front and not in the denominators. Okay, so let's see. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And a negative negative makes a positive. And a negative negative again makes a positive. But it's still not close to this, right? It's still not 100%. I'll know it's 100% when the screen turns green. So I'm going to take the x and move it to the side. Whoop, listen to me. There we go. And so I have 1/3 x plus 4. Yes. So we're saying that the first equation we had is a similar equation to this one. Both of them are actually the same. They're just in different forms because we manipulated both sides of the expressions for this equation, keeping it balanced using properties of equality. All right. So if I asked you now, what would the slope of this line be? You would say the slope is 1/3. And what would the y-intercept be? You would say the y-intercept is a positive 4. All right, let's move on to our line it up activity. In a line it up activity, you have to write the equation of this line. They're going to give you a separate line here that's not the same. You have to analyze this graph to figure out, well, what is the y-intercept and what is the slope? Well, let's take a look. If I was to take a look at the y-intercept, I know that the y-intercept is 4. So this letter C is going to be 4, right? And now I need to know, well, what is this fraction going to be? Well, I just have to find, how does this line move from this point to, let's say, that point right here? How does it move from this point to that point? Well, it definitely goes up 1 unit, so that would be a 1 on the top. And then it moves over 1, 2, 3 spaces to get to that point right there on the line. So the slope of the line is 1/3. Well, when you hit this is your line, and it's not the same. First of all, you don't have the same y-intercept, you don't have the same slope, right? This slope is going differently. Well, you just have to say, well, I know that the y-intercept is 4. And now look, the line has moved to the same exact point that you want. And now you just have to say, well, you have to move the same. You have to go up 1 and to the right 3. This blue line is not doing that. So I'm going to tap on this and I'm going to say change to 1. So it does. And then I need to tell it, you need to move to the right 1, 2, 3 spaces. So we're going to tap on that, move it to the right 3. And there you have it. That is the equation of the line. There is one more concept I need to show with this one. Here we want to get this as y equals again. We have a line that we call this standard form, and we want to get it in y-intercept form, because if we wanted to graph it like that line we just saw, we would ask ourselves, well, what is the slope and what is the y-intercept, right? So again, I'm going to use the properties of equality. So I'm going to say, take this balanced equation, and I need the 3x not here, but on that side. So I need to move this 3x. So I'm going to say, all right, take the 3x, which is positive, and I need you to take it away. Taking away means subtract. So take away 3x. No, 3x minus 3x is 0. And now I have this. I'm going to commute this side. So I'm going to just move these around by commuting. And whoa, wait a minute. This is so close. The y is negative, but it should be positive. The negative 3x should be positive. the positive 8 should be negative. Well, when this happens, we can do one of two things. We can just use a property of equality, divide both sides by -1, or multiply both sides by -1. I can do either one. If I divide both sides by -1, I get this. So if I say, well, a negative divided by a negative is positive, and anything divided by 1 is itself. Here, well, listen to me. I'm going to just bring it up there. All right, so -1, there's a 1 here, -1. I'm just going to distribute it inside, and there we go. And we did it. We finished it. Now, some people like to do something else when they have the situation here. I'm just going back so that I can show you. The other property of equality that we can use to change the signs back to what they were was to multiply both sides by -1. I can tell it times by -1. Oh, there we go. So if I multiply negative times negative, I also get a positive. And if I multiply everything inside this expression by -1, I'm going to use a distributive property here. And I'm going to show you that inside it's going to multiply by the 3 and the 8, the 3 and the 8. I'm going to say go ahead. And it did. It changed the signs to the opposite sign. So both ways work perfectly. I hope this was a good demonstration to help you understand how to do this assignment, which is a quiz. So make sure you do it.